You know, today is one of those days where things just don't seem to be clicking. You know, I get out here on the trail, I start hiking, I start thinking, I meditate, I try to get deep into thought and just let my thoughts flow and translate my thoughts into words and start going. But for whatever reason, today's one of those days where it's just, man, it's just an all-out struggle. Just an absolute struggle. So welcome back to another episode of Sweat Talk. My name is Chad. And it's easy for us to think that going out and talking to our camera and going for a hike, you know, it's easy to think that this stuff is simple. You know, it's easy to think that I got it all figured out. You know, people compliment how much they appreciate me and my insights and my point of views. But sometimes coming out here and doing this it's a pure struggle, man. And my brain just doesn't want to work. And today's one of those days. But you know, I suffer from everything that I talk about every single day. You know, I don't have life all figured out. I don't have everything all figured out. And I think that's one of the things that might separate me from most people, is the fact that I realize that I don't have it all figured out. But I also realize that I don't have to have everything all figured out in order to get done what it is that I need to do, what I need to get done. You know, I know the direction that I want to go. I have an idea of the things that I want to do. I know what my end goal is. And regardless, I'm doing everything that I possibly can to achieve that end goal, you know. And if you've been around for any amount of time, you know that my end goal is to retire at 50. I got 4 years left. My birthday was just a couple weeks ago. I'm 46. I've got 4 years left. And so far I'm on track to do that. I developed this channel so that I would have a retirement project, because you know, we think that retirement means that we're going to stop working. We think that retirement means that we're gonna just sit on our ass or do whatever for the rest of our lives. But to me, that's not the case. To me, it just simply means that I'm going to get my time back. I'm going to buy my life back, because I've spent the last 4 decades of my life selling my life to somebody else for a fucking paycheck. And I'm done with it. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to work and I'm going to live life on my terms. And I'm not going to back myself back into a corner. And I'm not going to allow somebody to dictate my day from day to day. That's up to me. But you know, a lot of people say that they'll never be able to retire. A lot of people think that that's an impossible dream that almost nobody gets to enjoy. But the problem with thinking like that or thinking that way, or however you want to say it, is everybody can retire. We just have to we have to better focus on our priorities. What is your priority, and why is it that you want to retire? What is it that you want out of your future? You know, because excuses are nothing more than permission to hurt your future self. You know, have you ever thought of it like that? Have you ever thought of it that way? You know, all of those excuses that we make for ourselves, why we're alone, or why we're broke, or why we're driving a piece of shit car, or renting, why we can't afford a house, you know. So, you know, something that comes to mind is the fact that it's extremely difficult for us to become vulnerable with ourselves. We don't want to admit that we are vulnerable when we are. You know, we especially don't want to admit to somebody else that we're vulnerable when we are, right? Because for some reason we're ashamed of that, and we've been taught that we need to suppress vulnerability instead of openly expressing it. You know, I don't make these videos so that I can ramble or make myself sound overly intelligent, because you know, I wasn't born with incredible genetics. I'm not an overly intelligent guy. I'm just a normal dude that has found the ability to translate his thoughts into words. I don't have any formal traditional education. You know, I don't have any college degrees. I do have tons of certificates. You know, I've been certified in just about everything. But it goes back to that need to learn, and that desire to educate myself and to find more knowledge. And I don't believe that you need traditional education for that. I know you don't need it to get ahead. I think you need to be vulnerable, and you need to be honest with yourself and the people around you about those vulnerabilities. And I think that's why so many people also flock to this channel, is because they can relate. Because I don't sit here, I don't go take pictures in somebody else's jet, right? I don't go pretend that I drive a Lamborghini. I don't pretend that I'm something bigger than I am. You know, being humble and vulnerable to me is going to be somebody that is evidence. You know, it's real world, real life example of what can happen to anybody as long as you just put in a little bit of extra. You know, because if you put that little bit of extra on top of ordinary, what do you get? Extraordinary. You know, I don't think there's anything average about me, but I am just a normal dude. I'm just a normal dude that is able to push people's judgments aside and not give a fuck what other people think. And you know, there's a perfect example, my swearing. I can't tell you how many times people say that I shouldn't swear or I need to stop swearing or whatever. You know, I don't give a fuck. I am me. And if you don't like it, pound sand, kick rocks, go find somebody else. I don't care. My goal is to be myself. My goal is to try to change people's perspective and offer a different perspective so that we can all open our eyes, so that we can all experience what it's like to achieve our dreams, so that we can all be witness to the possibility of achieving our dreams, right? I mean, if you've been with this channel for any time at all, you know, you've seen the rapid growth. You've seen that anything is possible as long as you commit to it and you just put in the work. You know, those people that say that they'll never be able to retire, how many of those people are working a second job and concentrating, solely focusing that money from the second job on investments? Instead, lifestyle inflation picks up, right? So they've been sucking wind, living in a studio, driving an old beat up car. So as soon as they get a little bit more money, then they go splurge a little bit, and then it turns into a regular habit of splurging. And instead of investing, instead of paying themselves first to ensure that their future self doesn't have to suffer anymore. Instead, when the next iPhone 17 or 20 or 50 or whatever comes out, they're going to run out and buy that new iPhone. They're going to go buy the brand new game console. They're going to get the latest and greatest computer. They're going to upgrade their car. And now you're going to be working 2 jobs to make sure that you can afford the payments on 1 credit card that you never could afford in the first place. And if you would have just invested in yourself, it would have been no problem. You know, 5 to 10 years from now, you'd be able to afford anything that you want. You would be able to afford it to retire. People set themselves up all the time to retire inside of 10 years. 40 to 50, it's possible, it is doable, but you have to focus on what you want. You have to be vulnerable with yourself. You have to be vulnerable and accept the things that you can change and accept the things that you cannot change and just let that shit go aside. Because if you can't change it, what are you trying? What are you even doing? What are you attempting to accomplish? All you're doing is you're wasting energy. And by not being vulnerable with yourself, you're not holding yourself accountable. And by doing that, you're never going to get anywhere in life. See, there's power in being vulnerable. There's power in vulnerability. There's more power in honesty than there is dishonesty, because you're never going to get away with a lie. You will always know that you lied to yourself. You will always know that you lied to somebody else. And you do that because you're afraid of vulnerability, right? That's one of the many reasons anyway. You know, I'll use myself for another example, right? Like, I could go take pictures or videos of me driving around in my daughter's BMW. I could go stand next to my buddy's Ferrari for thumbnails or for clicks and likes. I could pretend that I live in $1 million mansion down the street from my house. That's not the point. That's not the case, because if I'm not vulnerable and if I'm not open and honest, then you guys are going to feel that. And that applies to you too. That applies to your everyday life. If you're pretending to be something that you're not, well, people around you are going to feel that. They're going to feel that vibration and that insecurity. And deep down inside, you're going to know that you lied. And that's baggage that you're going to carry. That's regret that you'll experience in the future. Hello. So think about my stutter, right? Some people notice the hell out of it. Some people notice that I stutter like crazy. And I've always been that way, especially once my blood pressure gets elevated. Then it gets bad. Like when I get really excited about something, then I start stuttering. My brain goes 1,000,000 miles an hour and my voice just can't keep up with my thoughts. So I stutter and I stumble all over myself. But you know, that's who I am. That's a part of me. That is me. And I don't feel the need to hide it. And if people don't like it, well, fuck them. I don't care. I was talking to an old friend the other day, and he was telling me about how he started watching my YouTube videos, and he actually mentioned my stutter, because you know, it's something that I've done ever since I was a kid. You know, it's been my entire life. But in that conversation, it really drove home the impact that I can have on other people. And I believe that that's an impact that we can all have. I believe that that's something that we can all do for other people around us. You know, we all have the ability to lift others, and we especially have the ability to lift ourselves. Without accountability, we're not going to lift anybody, including ourselves. It's nothing but denial, right? We're just going to deny to ourselves that, well, it's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's somebody else's fault that it's my manager's fault that I'm stuck in this job. It's my manager's fault that I don't make more money. It's my manager's fault or my boss's fault, my corporation's fault that I'll never be able to retire. You see where I'm going with this? It's not somebody else's fault. It is our own fault. We are the only ones that have any control of anything in any situation in our lives, and we're the only ones that allow somebody else's judgments. We're the only ones that are going to deny our own vulnerabilities. We are the only ones that are going to. We're the only ones that are going to be able to witness our dreams die. We're the only ones that are going to be able to feel and experience our dreams just simply vanishing and dying and always being off in the distance, never being able to realize the reality of what it is that we want to achieve. You know, it's sad. It's really sad because I believe that everybody can achieve their dreams. I believe that we all should achieve our dreams. You know, I believe that because I've done it. I believe that because I went from a high school dropout and a homeless teenager to achieving what at least 95% of the entire world will never achieve. I've been able to pick myself up through hard work and through internal dialogue and just simply translating my words or my thoughts into words. I've been able to achieve having a fantastic marriage. I have an amazing daughter. I can do anything and everything that I want, and I realize it. But it didn't start that way. It started with a woe is me, my life sucks, and it's somebody else's fault. It's my teacher's fault, or it's my parents' fault, or whatever. Even though I was being a complete piece of shit, it wasn't my fault that I was homeless, right? It wasn't my fault that I had to drop out of high school so that I could afford to live. That was my parents' fault. I didn't want to hold myself accountable for being an asshole and treating my parents like shit. But you know, thankfully I saw the error in my ways at an extremely young age. I realized that at the age of 17 that the only person that can get me out of this rut and the only person that's going to ever be able to achieve anything and realize my own dreams was me. But first I had to be vulnerable with myself, and I had to be fucking real. I had to be real with myself. So if you made it this far, do me a favor and go down in the comments section and write that word vulnerable. Just that one word, vulnerable. You know, there's power in that. There's power in vulnerability. Even if people say that being vulnerable means being weak, and I think that that's complete horseshit, right? Because that means that you're bucking the system. You're going against the system and the mainstream thought of all this freaking machismo. You know, you're going against the system, and you are being vulnerable to yourself. You're admitting to yourself your wrongs, and you're being vulnerable to the people around you, and you're allowing people in to see the real you. And as soon as we do that, then we can lift ourselves up. As soon as we do that, then we can find the errors in our ways, and we can find the life of our dreams. So I asked for these short comments because they do a couple of things. You know, they help us reprogram our subconscious mind in a positive way. Because when we see something over and over and over, then we're going to be more likely to find the power in the situation and the power in these words and the power of our own voice and thoughts. And we're going to be able to reprogram our minds to understand and hold our own selves accountable. And I want nothing more than to uplift every single person around me. I want to be that elevator that does nothing but go up. I want everybody to be able to live and realize their own dreams. But then just leaving one of those short comments, it also helps the channel grow, because every time the algorithm sees somebody comment, like, and subscribe, then it's going to be more likely to push this content out for other people who might find value in it as well. So it's just one simple thing that you can do to help the channel grow if you find value in it. If you want to support us even more, go to my website. You'll see a link in the description. Pick up some Sweat Talk swag. Go check out our supplement line that we got. It's good stuff. And with that, I want to thank you guys for all those super thanks that you guys are giving me. Your generosity is absolutely unworldly, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for showing up I hope you guys are showing up for yourselves, and I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful day. Peace.